A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Dear beloved brothers and sisters, assalamu alaikum. Back again. All right. This is day 10, and in the language of Imam Deen Mohammed, and we also have to just say, of course, it is entry number 10. We've had to miss a day or two just logistically. I understand that. But it's still day 10 for as far as the journal or for as far as the vlog is concerned. Well, in the language of Imam Deen Muhammad, rahimahullah, 10 represents the completion of an order and the beginning of a new order, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. That's the end of that. And then you start another one. 10, 1 and a 0. And then you go on 11, 12, 13, 14. Well, we're at 10. So we're at the end of one order and the beginning of another. And to that end, I'm going to shift gears a little bit. It's, of course, still in concert with the whole plan, the Sacred Life Project, which is, of course, what we're talking about. But we started out not using any quotes from Imam Muhammad explicitly, as I'm going to do tonight. I'm going to read a quote, and my comments are going to be grounded in that quote. But it's grounded in that quote also to further your understanding and further your preparation for your understanding and participation in the Sacred Life Project. I remind you again, it's going to be a project that people who want to preserve and utilize and understand the language, logic, and legacy of Imam Deen Muhammad, an opportunity for them to participate in making that happen. So, in our last segment, we talked about khalaqa sawwa qadra hada, the knowledge of anything, how to have a complete knowledge of anything. And that's based on comments and insights of Imam Deen Muhammad. So our intention, our hope is that a greater understanding is had for the project, the way the project is to be conducted, and the end object of the project. So all of these conversations, all these presentations are designed to give that preparatory understanding about what are we doing, how are we doing it, and why are we doing what we are doing. So I've taken a quote from the Imam that helps in that aim. So I'm going to read it. He says, quote, "For everything that God has made, there is a knowledge context for it. There is a knowledge context for it. So academic man takes the knowledge and he puts the knowledge in order. He says, this knowledge goes with this particular interest. And this knowledge goes with that interest. This knowledge is of the material nature. This knowledge is of that material nature." He said, this knowledge is of this material nature, and this knowledge is of that material nature. Then he studies even the psychology of the human person and says, this knowledge is of this nature, the spiritual nature. This knowledge is of the emotional nature, and he gives it order. He orders all of this knowledge and then puts it in an institution. And you go there and you select from the knowledge that the academic history has ordered, and you choose the order or the knowledge field you want to be in. All right? End quote. Now, that's Imam Muhammad describing how knowledge gets cataloged, organized, institutionalized, and how it thereby advances a given society. I don't know how many of you had a chance to check in, but you should check in on our public address of August 22nd. And you can get there by going to aclearunderstanding.net and looking under the Juma Live page. And the topic was Al-Islam and the American identity crisis in the age of the Tea Party. And a part of the concluding comments that we had there, and it's about a 2-hour presentation actually, the concluding comments there with regard to what Al-Islam has to do with it, is again citing from Imam Muhammad how the leaders of society, the powers holders of society, they're okay with you having your ideas and having your culture and having those kinds of things for yourself, as long as it's not set up in a way that competes with the superstructure that they have. When you want to have a social life that's yours and independent from theirs, and that's yours and is grounded on a thinking different than theirs, or that's yours and it doesn't reinforce their supremacy or power over you, well, that's a problem. Well, then Muslims have to understand that we inherently have a problem because God tells us, "Well, takum minkum umma yad'una ila al-khair." He said, "Let there be out of you an ummah, enjoining all that is good, for inviting to all that is good, enjoining what is right, forbidding what is wrong." Well, God intends for Muslims to have their independent social order, independent social life, not to encroach upon others, impose upon others, but also, in turn, not to be encroached upon or imposed upon. Well, how do you do that? You do that in a way that's consistent with your value norms, in a way that's consistent with your view of life, in a way that's consistent with your idea of your own destiny. You know, politics is about self-determination. So if you're not in a position to determine your own destiny, then your politics are not in your own best interest. Well, Muslims have a responsibility to do things in their own best interest. And we also need to make it very, very clear that, you know, the interest of ethnic Muslims, even though Muslim as a whole is a minority in this country, inside the body politic, I'll say, of Muslims, we also have divisions of Muslims. That is, you have Arab Muslim, Pakistani Muslims, you know, Southeast Asian Muslims, African Muslims, European Muslims, African American Muslims. Here you have all these types. And each one of us has a cultural distinction that's not to be obliterated by Al Islam, nor is that cultural distinction to be imposed upon the other Muslim in order for them to be real Muslims. No, everyone has their own particular reflection and inflection and representation and application and understanding of Al Islam in their place, in their time, in their circumstances, and that is completely Islamic. So, in the context of Imam Deen Mohammed, well, his language, his logic, his insights provide a strategy and tactics for life in this country that are peculiar to the people that he spoke to first. And also, they are I think the language is fungible. Now you have to look that up. I'm stepping out there on this word, fungible, Fungible, something that can be, you know, take parts of it can be taken and applied in other places and used in other places. And the bottom line is that it can be elaborated by other ethnic Americans or other Americans, period. But the first people to have to understand it is the people that it's designed to really rehabilitate their lives, because they're the ones that had this original suffering that I haven't heard it said better than anyone, than Imam Muhammad, who says they have been subjected to an experimental clinic designed to cause them to dysfunction in the vital areas of their lives. A single word for it is dehumanization, and the correction is rehumanization. Well, if you're going to be restructured, then certainly you need to be restructured upon the best and proper blueprint. Well, the best and proper blueprint, of course, is Al-Islam, but not just Al-Islam, just in blanket. And this is a mistake that many ethnic Muslims make. They make the mistake, well, I just want just plain Islam. There's no plain Islam. Every time you get Al-Islam is being reflected and refracted through some particular lens. And it's through that lens that their life of Al-Islam is lived out. Well, Imam Muhammad provides a lens for African American Muslims in that regard, and that's what we're working on: cataloging, institutionalizing, codifying, understanding better. So, inshallah, we pray that you stick with us on this journey on the Sacred Life Project, and may Allah accept your fast for those who are fasting. Ramadan Mubarak. See you next time. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.